And we are clear for takeoff. Welcome to Keep It Electric with Kareem Person. This is going to be a weekly recap on the current state of our Seattle Mariners. This is episode 1, so thanks for joining me. Sponsored by Sonic Shore. At the time of this recording, it is Friday afternoon, May 12th. The Mariners are sitting at 4th place in the AL West, 18 wins, 19 losses, 4.5 game behind the Texas Rangers, who I think is really surprising everyone, but maybe themselves. It appears that the Rangers knew what they had for a baseball team, knew what they were building, and they fooled me. I'll tell you that. I thought it was business as usual for them. I thought they were just going to be spending boatloads of money and delivering a middle-of-the-road baseball team. But as of now, they're 22-14. And that's despite having two of their biggest contracts on the injured list right now, in Corey Seager and Jacob deGrom. So, props to their start. I would like to think that we're in a very similar position that we were in last year. 37 games in, a slightly losing record, and some underperforming bats. But honestly, I'm true to the blue, as I hope most people who are listening to this are. It's just a matter of time before those bats wake up from their slumber. When you start 37 games into the season, it's hard to really know where to start, right? So we're just going to pick up with where we are. And over time, I believe that you guys are going to get to know a little bit more about me and my background and why I'm here. But I would like to keep this segment, these shows, relatively short. Hopefully, you could be listening to this on your way to work. You could be listening to this while you're doing your laundry. You could be listening to this while you're drinking your coffee. You could be listening to this just because. I don't really know your situation, but I hope that you can enjoy, 20 minutes of baseball with me. So let's just jump in. Where I would like to start is, I got the chance to go to this day game this past Wednesday, and it was the rubber match between the Rangers and the Mariners. And I'm feeling pretty good about this game. We have Castillo taking the mound, and he's going head-to-head against, quite frankly, not only a guy who has been a fantasy baseball liability for me. Yes, that's personal, but that also translates into a liability for your baseball team. So the Texas Rangers liability is apparently this guy who has been stunning, and that is the stunning, dazzling Dane Dunning. I'm giving him this nickname, that moniker, because his statistics are proving so far this year that he is that good. But he hasn't been for the last 3 years. And I didn't even know the guy was still in the league, but he was moved down into relief. He started lighting it up. He got put back in the rotation. He's had 2 really good starts, and 2 including, that includes this past Wednesday where he pitched pretty well. I mean, he kept the Mariners from really getting started, which unfortunately, it seems like it's not that hard to do lately. But he kept the Mariners from starting anything. And he looked better than Castillo on that given day. Castillo is a very dazzling pitcher, and he also looked good. I think he gave up 3 earned runs in 5 innings, K'd 9, striking out 9 batters. That's the team that has the 3rd best batting average in the AL, 5th in all of Major League Baseball. So the Texas Rangers are no slouch, and I think they might be for real. Maybe it'll get a little too hot in Texas, and they'll correct that ship back to being middle of the road. But they look like they're prepared to compete this year. So there's going to be some really interesting matchups, really interesting games between the Mariners and the Rangers for the rest of this season. that day game completely changed my focus on what I wanted to talk about for this show. Because going to that game, I'm looking at the lineup and I'm realizing that Julio Rodriguez is no longer hitting leadoff. And it's not too much of a surprise. I was at the game Tuesday night and I was thinking to myself, like, how long are we going to run with this guy being in our leadoff spot? I don't think it was ever the intention for him to be the leadoff batter for the Seattle Mariners. I think because if you look at last year, we started with Frazier, and then I believe we moved to Crawford. But Julio was the hottest bat that we had on the team. He's the fastest guy that we had on the team. He has premier leadoff potential, but I always thought that his bat would be more dangerous, hitting behind some guys that are already on base. And I think if we had the production in front of him, it would have proven itself last year. So that's just my 2 cents. The reality is he was moved lower in the order because of this slump that he's been on, which has lasted well over 2 weeks. It's lasted a lot longer than anyone probably expected for it to last. And at this point, I believe the numbers are in his last 13 games, he's hitting 120 with a strikeout rate of 39.2%. And he's got to fix that. And it doesn't just start with contact. The guy's chasing way too many pitches. He's really in his head. And it doesn't matter, how he presents himself outwardly, because outwardly he still has this trademark smile and this relaxed nature. It looks to me, from my point of view, that he's going through something very similar to what we saw with Jarred Kelenic over the last few years. And Kelenic has figured that out and corrected that course, and I believe that Julio Rodriguez would do that in a lot faster time. But outwardly, Kelenic, when the way he presented himself was also very emotional, but it was the type of emotional that turned a lot of Mariners fans off. But I looked at it as a guy who just wants this so badly. And Kelenic and Rodriguez have similar ways in carrying the success of this franchise on their shoulders, and knowing that their production or feeling that their production directly correlates with the team's success. And that's not necessarily wrong, but I think it's leading to more of this quicksand-like batting approach. And I say that in a way of, like, these guys want it so bad that they're getting behind in counts and they're chasing pitches outside of the strike zone, and these pitchers are really taking advantage of how bad they want it. So sorry, I didn't mean to mix Kelenic up into this whole thing, but with Julio, I don't really know what steps that he's gonna have to take to get back. I mean, clearly, it's as simple as saying wait for your pitch, right? But I do believe him being lower in the count and sandwiched between some bats that are really working right now could really help. That way, these pitchers don't have the time to really scheme or game plan their pitching approach against him. I felt like it was a lot easier for them to have an approach catered right towards him, because when he was at the front of the lineup and the lineup is turning over, a lot of those bats in front of him weren't strong bats or weren't delivering very well, and it was easy to kind of call time and really discuss their approach with him. And what ends up happening is he doesn't really get a lot of fastballs. He gets a lot of breaking balls, and he's chasing those. But when you look at the fastball, those numbers are down as well. He's not barreling up the way he was barreling it up last year. He's swinging under that ball a lot, and that type of contact, it's not carrying out of the park the way that it used to. His batting average against fastballs right now are 194 in comparison to 316, which is what he was hitting last year against the fastball. There's a lot to unpack with what's going on with Julio. The swing, I don't know if he needs to address the batting stance either, but that's not even, I don't even really want to dive that deep into that. I think really what it comes down to is we all just hope that Julio can figure it out and get back to the Julio ways. With that being said, I did want to focus on Bryce Miller in this first episode, but unfortunately I won't be able to get to that. But just as a quick note, for anyone who hasn't been able to see this guy pitch, the guy has an absolutely electric fastball, and it's his main pitch right now, and it's working. I don't know how long that fastball is going to keep working the way that it is, but the spin rate is out of control. It's a very electric fastball, and a lot of people weren't really giving him the benefit of the doubt because his first matchup was against the Oakland A's, who are, they have their bags packed and they're halfway on their way to Vegas, so they didn't take that as a formidable or legitimate opponent, and that's somewhat correct. But the way he manipulated the Astros lineup as well, to me, is proof that he's the real deal and a rather formidable replacement for Robbie Ray right now. I'd love to see him mix up his pitches a little bit more, get a hold of those breaking balls. But as long as that fastball spin rate stays as high as it does, he's going to be a dangerous player for us. And with that being said, let's go ahead and shift gears and look at what's in store for the Mariners going forward right now. They're hitting the road. I believe they're going on a series, 3-road series against the Tigers, the Red Sox, and the team with the best record in the National League, the Atlanta Braves, which is always a fun matchup. If you saw the series that they had last year, that was so much fun to watch. Do think we have some intriguing matchups against the Tigers. On Friday, we have two lefties going head-to-head, and Marco Gonzalez, who is looking very Marco Gonzalez-like, if that makes sense. He's having some really good days and some not-so-good days. But he's going against a former Mariner and Matthew Boyd. Shout out to Mercer Island, so a little Seattle guy. But I like our matchups against lefties, and I believe we have Matthew Boyd pitching against us on Friday and Joey Wentz on Sunday. Two lefties with high ERAs. We hit lefties pretty well, in my opinion. So hopefully we'll get those in the win column. Saturday we'll see Bryce Miller again versus another rookie for the Tigers, Alex Fado. He's got one start under his belt. He went 4.5 or 4 2/3 with a K in a no decision against St. Louis. So two guys with a lot to prove. But after this Tigers series, we have the Red Sox, who are always a difficult team, and the Braves, which will also be difficult. So we need to stack some wins while we can, get back in the win column, and this Tiger series looks to be a good opportunity for us to do that. So with that being said, we're going to close out this episode. I'd like to thank everyone who has taken the time to give this a listen, wherever you are, whatever it is you may be doing. I'd love it for you to tune in for next week's episode as we recap the action from this upcoming road trip with the Mariners. If you want to stay connected, you can follow the Instagram page. It's Keep It Electric. And if you have any questions, players you want spotlighted, any features like game time decisions that you want more insight on, I'd love to do an analytical rundown or a rundown that involves just the intuition in those moves. You can email me at keepingitelectric@gmail.com. I'll personally let you know if and when the topic will take place, and I would love to connect with you. So that email is open, and I hope to hear from you. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Keep it electric. Go M's.